Okay, someone has a question here. What are some resources an atheist can use to educate themselves better on inconsistencies and inaccuracies in Abrahamic religions? Well, you could avail yourselves of the 56-part series, right?
What, Joseph
Failures
Campbell?
of Christianity.
Well, I don't know if I qualify as an expert, to be honest.
I would say watch your step, because when you start getting into inconsistencies and inaccuracies, you're going to start getting into counter-apologetics, which is just a wormhole from which you don't know where you're going to, be expelled. You'll jump into that and you may never come out. The problem with the inconsistencies and the inaccuracies is that if you're boning up on those in order to use them on other people, they are going to go to the internet, they're going to look up the inconsistency, and there will be some really crappy responses, but it will be good enough for them, and they will come back to you, and they'll either send you the link or they will send you like a quote or something, but it'll be like, here's the answer to that. Until it gets overwhelming, unless you can find something overwhelmingly demonstrating that something that is key to their belief. And that's the other thing. It matters what each person believes and why. Mm-hmm. That's why a good question is, what do you believe and why do you believe it? Now, if you just want to understand a little bit more about how these religions were produced, and that kind of helps dispel a lot of the mystique around them, there's a book called History of God by Karen Armstrong, I think, and that's a really good book on how the Abrahamic religions all kind of came about and birthed one another, so that it gives you a good sort of foundation of, oh, this is what it was from a secular standpoint. The other one that's good that I've read is, the guy that went to seminary. He was going to go...
Is this Ehrman?
Ehrman, yeah, Bart
Ehrman.
And you can look him up. He's got a lot of books that people recommend. I think I read Misquoting Jesus, and he deals mainly with New Testament scholarship because that's what he studied. But he goes through the issues that he literally was enlightened about when he went into his courses in biblical studies as a true believing fundamentalist, basically, and came out very, very smacked around.
Robert Price would be another good author. The whole Bible thing is a very specialized, messy topic. We had a guest on that was a mythicist, right? Not too long ago.
Yeah, David Fitzgerald. But I just want to say that when it comes to the Abrahamic religions and those inconsistencies, you're going to... Specific instances are probably not going to be that helpful to you. It's going to be an overall kind of overarching thing, I think, that would be more useful. It depends on what you're going to do with it.
And there aren't huge numbers of skeptical texts out there on the Bible and really diving into it. There is, if you go to the bookstore, there's a lot of stuff to avoid. This is spiritual this and that. And as Tracie says, if your motivation is to argue the Bible, then you may be ceded too much ground. Maybe you should just say, tell me why the Bible's important.
Right.
I don't think it is. That's probably a good starting point, and maybe stay out of that stuff.
Yeah.
It is morass.
Yeah, and I mean, don't take my word for it. Just go argue with a Christian about it. You'll see where it goes. It's a very, very big mess. So if you can avoid getting into a biblical argument, and like what Don said, it's not like an evasive tactic. It really is a question of cart before the horse. The Bible is only important, in the sense that they believe a God wrote it. So there has to be a God to have written it for the Bible to matter if they're saying it's the Word of God. So you have to back out of that and say, well, let's demonstrate a God, because if we can't identify a God, and if there's no God manifesting, if we can't show that God exists,
and it's got all
it didn't write a book,
right?
And that's that saying that I always refer back to. I didn't invent it, but it was things that do not exist cannot be the cause of other things. So if God has to exist in order for God to have done something like write the Bible. So where is this God? Let's pinpoint it and then see if it writes Bibles.
Yeah.